Hello, my name's John. It's Mordheim Month, these are hired swords, and you're watching War Games, Models and Other Hobbies. Hello and welcome back. Today I am going to be making some bases for my Mordheim hired swords. Now, I'm going to do one major technique with all of these using green stuff, and I'm going to create city streets for the bases, so like paving stones and things like that. Not all of them are going to have the same base throughout. So the first one that I'm not going to need is our knight. I'm going to leave the bases plain on him because they are going to be textured paint and grass and things like that. So I'm going to move him to one side for now. The other 6 hired swords, you'll see that the Ogren is on the standard 40 by 40 mil base. This one's a little bit worse for wear, but it's not going to matter because that's covered up. And then all of the other hired swords are now on 25mm bases rather than the old 15, because with all of my new Mordheim projects, I want to keep them the same base size as Warhammer Old World, so I can interchange the models and that kind of thing. So, first thing first, I want to decide what each of the bases are going to be. I know for the ogre, I'm going to use one of these plastic grills from a basing set. I can't remember which one it was off the top of my head, but I'll put it on the screen now. And I'm going to use that as a grate on the base itself. And I'm going to do the same with another grate as well on one of the other bases. So what I'm going to aim to do is have probably 1 to 2 of each type of base that I'm looking for the style of where I want it on the streets. So first things first, I need to mix up a good amount of green stuff. Okay, there we have a nice big lump of mixed up green stuff. Now I'll start with the larger base, so the ogre's base. And what I want to do is make all of these bases, and then I'll fit the hired swords to them later on. I'll probably drill and pin their feet rather than use the old slaughter base style on there. So first thing I want to do is position this grate in place, and I'm going to glue it to the base. Okay. So there it is, gluing in place. So what I now want to do, I'm going to roll out from my big blob of green stuff. Now you don't have to mix it all up in one go like I've done, but I wanted to do them all at the same time and keep them quite consistent. I'm going to roll, after I've mixed it a little bit more, a sausage of green stuff, and I'm going to position it around the edge of the grate just there. Just trim that little bit off. And the key thing with this, I'm not worried if it doesn't quite line up all the way around. Now let's zoom in a little bit on this. So what I'm looking to do is bring this in and I might have to take a few bits away, I might have to add a few bits in places, I'm not sure yet. But what I'm looking for, okay, So let me just cut those bits away briefly. So that surround there, I'm going to start sculpting into a brickwork. And I've got a variety of different tools to do that with. What you will find with green stuff, and any two-part modelling putty, to begin with, when you first mix it, it can be really quite sticky. So you don't necessarily want to sculpt it straight away. You want to put it in the right position to then be able to come back to it and tidy it up and work with it that way. So I'm going to leave that for a little bit, and I'm going to look at the other grate that I've got, and this one's going to be partially on the edge of a base. So I'm just going to score a line down the side of this piece just here. Let me just zoom out a little bit while I do this. And I'm just going to trim off bits of this as I go. And then now, the same as, see what I will do, I'm going to trim off another edge, as I want it in the corner of this base. There we go. Yeah, so I want it just sitting there like that. So let's just tidy this up a little bit. And although I'm doing these as Mordheim bases, you can do them for pretty much any game that you want. Hold that in place. Just going to put a few little bits. So let's let that start to dry for a little bit. Right, coming back to this base, what I want to do, I'm going to use a texture spreader to mark out where I want each of the bricks. So I'm going to start by doing 90-degree edges, and then I'm going to go in between those. So I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bricks going all the way around. Let's put that to one side for a bit. So the other thing that I want to do with at least one of the bases is just cover the whole thing with the green stuff. And then I'm going to sculpt into this the paving stones. So I'm just cleaning up the edge. You can also do this by using, say, styrene plastic, sticking it on and scoring it to get the lines in between the paving slabs. So there's that one there. And what I want on another one is something similar, but I don't want the whole thing to be paved. So let me push in some of the green stuff. And then again, I'm just going to clean up those edges. The reason why I don't mind using the green stuff and making it quite thick on the base either, it just gives a little bit of kind of extra scale to these models. In Mordheim, you're not going to be playing with a lot of miniatures on the table, but the ones that are on there, you want them to look kind of imposing and pretty cool. So just going to mark an edge there. Actually, I'm going to do, let's go like that. Okay. So this is going to have a right angle on it, like that. And let's get it onto these ones as well. So I think after doing the surround on that one, I'm just going to push this one up with this right up to the edge. I'm not worried about making the separate one, so the separate bricks going around it. I can sculpt those into it as I go. Okay, let's just tidy up this edge. And the green stuff is still pretty sticky at the moment, which I have to admit isn't my favourite moment with the green stuff. I like it as it starts to go off and it becomes a little bit more workable. Now let's show what I'm going to do with this one. So with those three, it's just squeezed on. This one I'm going to push on bits that I'll sculpt into shape as I go. And then I think I'm going to do one more base in a similar fashion to this. Okay, and I have a small amount of green stuff left, so what I'm going to do is keep that to one side in case I need it for any of these other pieces. So let's start with the most simple one, which is this square. So let's zoom on in so you can see it nice and close. What I want to do is not necessarily flatten it out, but smooth it off slightly compared to what it is at the moment, because it's got my fingerprints all over it. So I'm going to use this tool, but I'm going to use the handle just to gently roll and tidy up where my fingerprints are. Now I don't mind if I go over the edge of the base, because I can clean that off later on with a knife, just to smooth off the edge. And if you're doing this, you don't have to use green stuff. You could use Milliput or any other sculpting putty. Now you see there's a little dip in the middle of this now. What I'm going to do, I want to keep the dip in there, so I'm just going to push it with the end of this tool. Okay, so what I want to do now is put in where the edges want to go for the stones, but to help me hold this, I'm just going to put this in one of my painting grips. Let's zoom out slightly, just because it's a little bit easier for me to hold now. So all I'm going to do is push in some lines. There's a bubble just there, which I'll sort out later. And this is just to give me an idea. It's not set in stone where this brickwork's going to be. There we go. So I've got a few lines in there. So I'm going to go and work on each stone individually now, and I'm going to start in the middle and work my way out. Reason being, if I push any of the green stuff out, it's easier to tidy up the edge than it is to tidy up the middle, if that makes any sense. Ooh, just popped it out of the base. Let's try and hold this in there. There we go, that's better. So I'm going to play around with different tools to get different textures on that. That's what I'm looking for. So this middle slab isn't going to be as smooth as the others. And let's now just so what I'm hoping as well is, as I'm working on this base, the green stuff is curing on the other bases. So giving me a bit more of a firmer material to work with. See, this spreader works really nicely. Let's split that one in two. Thinking about it, might have been nice to go at a different angle to the squareness on the base on this one. So I can always do that with the other ones. So I'm just gonna put in a few little divots and details to this. And that little bubble that was in there, that is going to become a pitted detail. And this slab is going to have a bit more of a rougher finish to it. Split that one up as well. So that's all I'm going to do on this one. They don't have to be overly complicated, but what it allows you to do is just get a little bit more of a texture to the base rather than just texture paint or things like that. You get that different material on there. Now I'm going to carry on using this texture spreader for now, because it's actually giving a really nice finish to the green stuff. So what I'm going to do is run along like that. So this is going to be a bit more of a curbstone. And I think the benefit with Mordheim, it's why I like it after all these years, is you don't need to have a really big warband. You're only going to have like 10 or 12 models, so you can really spend the time, go to town and have a play around with your bases. You can theme them, so each gang you could have a particular theme on your bases. If you've got Skaven, you could go for sewers. You could, rather than paving slabs that I'm doing, you could do cobblestones. Let's And what I'm quite liking with this one is how what was almost regular shapes for the bases, as I work them, they're becoming a little bit irregular, a little bit worn down. So now I've done this to match the other base, let me just roll out this edge here. No, I might leave that. Let's always use different textures. Okay, I'm going to leave that one. It's quite an interesting form on the edge of there. Don't know what it's going to be. But that's that one. Let's while we wait, go to this one. So again, this one's going to have a rolled edge, rolled surface like the other ones. So first thing, I'm going to fan out first thing, I'm going to hold it in the base better. There we go. Let's re-roll that. Right, let's do that again. So I'm going to have to hold this in place while I do that, because it's really wanting to move. So that's okay. So I've created a pattern that I want for the edges, and the first thing that I'm going to do on this edge is I'm going to texturize this. It's going to become a surface maybe with some grass or mud or something like that. I'm not sure yet. But let's just change that slightly like that. Then I'm going to flatten these out individually. So what I'll do at the end of the video, I'll put a few photos of the bases once I've tidied up all the edges, so you can see what they look like, and you'll see them in another video when I talk about the hired swords, because I'll have put all of the hired swords onto the bases. But in my mind, with the way that you're going to make gangs for Mordheim, first thing you want to think about is your bases. So you might find you spend a bit of time modelling bases, getting a nice selection together before starting your gangs. And it's something I'll probably be doing a lot more with this time round of me playing Mordheim, as I want to make sure there's a bit of coherency to all of my models. Even the different warbands, I'm going to want them to look somewhat similar in the bases, just to tie them together. Just going to gently push a few little bits here and there. So here you can see how this base is turning out. And I'm going to use the thin end of the texture spreader just to define the edges of these slabs, these paving stones. Yeah, like I said, you don't have to do this and use it just for Mordheim. You can use it for pretty much any war game. But as it's Mordheim month, I'm doing them for Mordheim. Okay, there's that one. Now let's go to this one with the unusual blobs of green stuff. And I'm going to start with my spoon just to push these out. And pull them to a regular kind of shape. So you can use quite a lot of different things for bases. So you could use little wood sticks like lolly sticks or tongue depressors to create floorboards. Which could be a nice style of base to use. This one's actually quite a nice easy one to do, as I'm going for quite large slabs that don't have to be flat. Flatten that one a bit with my thumb. I mean, one thing that's always worth doing as well, which I haven't done in this time, just working from my head, is reference. Reference material is always brilliant because you can get a really nice, very quick finish and look to something without having to kind of make it up like I'm doing at the moment. So never fear having reference material. Okay. Let's put that one to one side, and now let's just go for the last one, which is the ogre's base. I'm going to have to hold that one. So in a similar way, let me push out each of these slabs. So these are more like, I don't know, flagstones or something like that. Oops, that one is, come up, let's push that back in. So this is still quite sticky, the green stuff. So it hasn't got to that point when it starts to become firmer and more rigid. Okay. Okay, I think what I'm going to do with this one is give it a little bit of a roll and then define where the edge of the slabs are. Actually, I never thought of using this particular tool's handle as a roller, but it's turned out better than I thought it would. Now I might use this technique with these kind of bases for when I start putting my Warhammer Quest sets together. If you haven't seen them, a while ago I managed to pick up a nearly complete set of the original 95 Warhammer Quest, which I still haven't had a chance to put everything together yet, but I will do it on the channel, So if you'd like a Warhammer Quest month, similar to how I'm doing Mordheim Month, please drop a comment. I'd be happy to oblige. Now I can already see that that one's come quite a bit off the edge, so I'm just going to whip that off. Oops. Just want to define the edges of all of these slabs and bricks. Managed to stick my thumb quite well onto a bit down here, which I'll tidy up in a second. Now the thing when working with this kind of material, unlike what I've done where I've mixed it all in one hit and gone for sculpting them all at the same time, you don't have to take, you can take your time and spend longer working out exactly how you want the pieces to look. Mix a little bit, add it, mix a little bit, add it, and that kind of thing. So just because I've done it, don't feel that you have to then try and do it all in one hit. If you've never used green stuff before, or Milliput or anything like that, take your time. So this one's turning out a little bit more chaotic than the other ones, but that could be for many reasons. Rather than it being a well-kept street, well, if any of the streets are well kept anymore, they're not in Mordheim, but you know what I mean. It's kind of just a different kind of finish. Okay, so let's bring each of these in so you can have a look at them. Let's bring that down to there. So there is a selection of green stuff paved bases. Like I said, I'll leave some photos at the end of the video of the edges tidied up, and then you'll see them on the models themselves in a future video. I hope you've enjoyed this video and the other Mordheim Month videos that are coming out this month. But for now, all I can say is thank you so much for tuning in. My name's John, and you've been watching War Games, Models, and Other Hobbies.